Hello. I'll start by acknowledging that UBC Vancouver campus and Green College are situated on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Musqueam people. Welcome to the Green College Resident Members Series. For those who are new or watching the recording, the Members Series is a weekly public lecture series in which resident members of UBC's Green College present on topics related to their research or their field of study. Today's speaker, Nico Jimenez, is a PhD candidate in the Department of Geography at the University of British Columbia. His work is situated at the intersection between cities, labor, and industrial policy. Originally from Vancouver, Nico received his BA first-class honors in Geography and Political Science from UBC, and his Master of Philosophy in Geography from the University of Cambridge. In his spare time, you can find Nico reading C.S. Lewis, running in Pacific Spirit Park, or on the dance floor. So with that, please join me in welcoming Nico.
Thanks very much, Michael. Very good evening, everybody. Thanks so much for coming, carving out moments of your day to be here. I truly appreciate it. Shout out to everyone on the live stream, and shout out as well to have my family here as well, making the trek from Coquitlam. So just, wanted to say thank you so much for coming. If you need the manual for how Nico operates, feel free to ask them. If you're like, why does Nico always do that? Or where all these sayings come from? My mom and dad and my brother would probably have some operating instructions on how I work and all the intricacies of that. For today's talk, I'd love to speak on another half of my research that I've been doing, trying to think about the relationship between cities, technology, industrial policy. It's a bit of a tangent from last year's residence talk around cities and climate change, but I'm trying to work through and navigate how I can put these two things into conversation and hopefully eventually either speak on this one today and hopefully see a lot of the emergence of big tech in the news and its relevance to our everyday life. And so hopefully this talk will at least provide some of the blueprints or footprints in this case for thinking about cities and big tech and our everyday life. So with that, thank you very much, Michael, for the land acknowledgement, situating ourselves as geographers, kind of wanting to think about our relationship with space and place, and thinking about people, the planet, and power. And with that, also acknowledging where I'm from, the beautiful place called Coquitlam, little slice of paradise. You probably heard about me talking about Coquitlam, perhaps at the dinner table or at breakfast, a bit too much. But if I could maybe give it one more shout out, this is, the lands, unceded lands, home to the Quaquitlam, the Tsleil-Waututh, and the Squamish. Certain sections here, some images are from Coquitlam Lake, as well as Bunsen Lake. There's, just an incredible opportunity to ascend mountains, to be above the clouds in Coquitlam, and then, an hours later, to go down, dip your toes into the beach, and it's just incredible. So these are some of the places that have shaped me, the people, the places that are near and dear to my heart, and just wanted to recognize the original caretakers of the land as well. With that, what's really interesting is just down the road, maybe 10 minutes from where I live, there's already been work that's being done and thinking about how we manage and steward our regional provincial parks. So this one right here, originally kind of known, at least growing up, as Belcarra Regional Park, but now it's been since, I believe, 2021, the 8th of October, the Metro Vancouver kind of board and the Tsleil-Waututh Nation have come into an agreement to kind of co-steward that regional park, to look at ways in which we can harness and understand Indigenous land and sovereignty, and thinking about ways in which they caretake the land in in coordination with and together with folks at the park board. So already just in my own backyard, we're seeing some work that's being done. But as we all know, a lot more to be done on that front to listen and to reconcile there. So thank you very much for the introduction. Coquitlam is home. I spent the best 5 years commuting from Coquitlam to UBC, and then I did ended up, I guess as geographers do, going about and exploring and going to England, kind of thinking about our relationship to place over there. And that's really where I think a lot of my interest in cities and big tech in particular, I think UBC was probably the greatest catalyst for thinking about these things. And then in England, that was even spurred even further on. So I don't know if they're on the live stream, but want to, say that I'm indebted to folks like Trevor Barnes, Jamie Peck, Alvin Wiley, Mia Gray. Those are folks, hopefully, that you'll be able to see a lot of their influence into the work that I do today. I decided that, I changed the gowns into Gore-Tex again and braved our rain back in BC, kind of moving from regalia to an umbrella, but nonetheless, that's great, and it's really nice to be able to go back home on most weekends to see the fam. And there's nothing quite like that. And just want to dedicate this talk to them. This is from a quote that I saw that I really like. I am who I am because somebody loved me, somebody cared for me, someone attended to me. And my folks definitely seen me at my best, seen me at my worst. To be fully known, fully loved, I feel like it's definitely something that we are shaped from, and really indebted to my family over there. On to what I do, I guess, when I'm not running around in Pacific Spirit or running around to breakfast. I do geography, and for some, I think that's quite an unusual topic, maybe a bit niche. There's a lot of different interpretations of what geographers do. Maybe the one on the bottom left is a bit more just for the banter. But I initially, started my first geography class in undergrad, not knowing what it was, kind of thinking that it was just all about maps and coloring in. Which part of it is just comes with the job, but I really do find my home in geography. I feel like I describe it as a potluck last year, just a place where you can exchange and everyone brings their own meal. Some folks are interested in the environment, others are interested in cities, others are interested in people, and I think we all kind of bring our own meal to the table, come home and exchange and see different types of recipes and say, hey, I really like that. And some people bring the main dish, others are bringing some desserts, and I think it's a really great way to describe our discipline. And at the end of the day, you get good conversation, and you get to have a bit of a takeout as well for food the next day to understand different types of research methods like ethnography or quantitative, qualitative methods. So that's what I do when I'm not running around. Our outline for the day is threefold. I've broken them up into 3 parts. Part 1 is hopefully an activity, just a way to think about footprints, a way to think about our relationship to corporations eventually, that we'll kind of think about into part 2, from urban space to cyberspace. And then thirdly, we'll land with a case study, a bit of my master's research looking at Amazon and their second headquarters and kind of what's going on with that. Is that all right with everybody? Does that sound okay? All right, let's start off with an activity, hopefully to just get the brain juices going at this fine 8:11 p.m. that we find ourselves in. Okay, so for the activity, it's based around just guessing the footprint. We'll be kind of identifying animal tracks. If this activity goes well, amazing, feel free to let me know after. If it doesn't go well, my email is scott@ubc.ca. So feel free to send that email right away. So if it doesn't go well, just email, once again, scott@ubc.ca. Okay, so basically, hopefully you get the gist of it. I'll show the animal tracks, the footprints first, and then hopefully I'll ask y'all to identify those from top to bottom. So kind of from the top, bear, dog, then we've got chicken, and then the lion. So we'll do maybe 3 or 4 rounds of these, and then we'll kind of tie it into looking at the footprints of corporations eventually. Okay, so round 1. Okay, from top to bottom, what do you think we have here? Okay, Merlin. Frog, that's indeed the correct. Second. Anyone want to take a guess at this? How's that showing? Oh, yeah. Nice and HD. Amanda. Elephant. Exactly. Yep, that's right. 2 for 2. Number 3. Ooh. Okay. Hold that. Yeah. Anyone else? Okay. Okay. We'll do the reveal at the end. I like the passion. Keep it up. Number 4. Anybody at the bottom there? Okay. No, that's all right. Here it is. 2 for 2. Rabbit. Apparently. Once again, don't ask me. Ask Scott at the end. Send that email. And then a crocodile. Okay, so that's round 1. Hopefully, we'll ease into it. Great effort. 2 for 2. Okay, round 2. Anyone see the first one? Yeah, exactly. Yep. Number 2. What are we thinking here? Think about farms. Ooh, potential. Sheep, cow. Okay, we're getting there. Number 3, maybe. Out of the interest of time. What are we thinking of the third one here? Yeah. Ooh, very close, actually. Yeah, very close. Any other guesses? Rhino. Yeah, that's exactly. It's a rhino. And then the 4th. Meat cheese. Lemur. Yeah. So we got a monkey. So here we go. Horse. I mean, it's the same. Apologies if anyone's in biology. But okay, we're going strong. Round 3. This is the last of the animal facts and figures. Ooh, apologies. Yeah. Okay, the first one. Anyone wanna? Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. Anyone for the 3rd and the 4th? Yeah. All right. Maybe the 4th might be a bit easier. Think about stripes. Yeah, zebra. Yeah, that's exactly right. And then the other one is. Oh no! Sorry about that. There we go. We got the mole. We got the fox, wolf, mole, and zebra. Onto the corporation. So when you think about at least animal tracks, and looking at their footprints, their paws, and whatnot, we know that they're somewhat identifiable, right? They make an imprint on the surface that they land on, and for some, there's a temporal aspect to it. For some, that kind of imprint, if you think of like a dinosaur fossil or something like that, that's quite temporally, that's quite resilient. That's been there for quite a while. We can trace that imprint from its first steps in changing the surface or the actual landscape on which those animals once took their first step. For others, just like maybe our own footprints on the beach, it sloshes away once the tide comes in and out. So that could be relatively quick as well. And hopefully, just thinking about those kinds of things about what footprints are, these kind of tracks, and what they mean when we think about it on perhaps a different scale, at the scale of the corporation. I don't expect y'all to think about what, or examine, or brainstorm with me what this corporation could have been. Anyone want to take a guess at what this corporation is and its imprint on the landscape? Maybe what kind of industry it's a part of? it's quite imposing. There's kind of some chimney smoke perhaps going up in there. It's black and white. Yep. Yeah. Coal, absolutely. So think about heavy industry, and I think, if we could extrapolate even further, we'll see that it's Ford River Rouge. So on that same note of like heavy industry, this is the Dearborn, in Dearborn, Michigan, the Ford River Rouge factory. Construction began in 1917. It was completed in 1928, and at the time it was built, it was the largest integrated factory in the world, which surpassed the Buick City, which was in 1904. Another type of landscape that we can think of if you think about corporations, the automobile, technology, and industry, is this image here. Would anyone like to guess what type of industry this is? Perhaps? It's quite imposing on the landscape. It's in Canada. It's fine art. Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right. This is the Athabasca oil sands up in northern Alberta. Exactly. So you can just see its imprint on the landscape before and after. Thank you all. That's all I've got for the activity. 5 rounds. Well done, well played. Game, set, match. Once again, I've heard Scott is readily available for any inquiry. His inbox is open if you have any further suggestions, or Spinar as well. But to think about the importance of our spatial footprint, and in particular as it relates to how we engage with corporations, I like to pose this question before we get into part 2. Is looking at what do we mean by a spatial footprint? What is the spatial footprint of these tech giants? Perhaps some of us are familiar with things like a carbon footprint or a carbon shadow. And I'm hoping to kind of play on these terms of a spatial footprint for tech giants, or if these giants have, as we'll hopefully demonstrate later today, later this evening, if they do have an imprint and an imposition on the urban fabric of our everyday lives, they also have a shadow that we can kind of better understand, and their kind of own understanding about and their relationship to, in particular, cities, which I'm really interested in and passionate about. Okay, part 2, corporations 2.0. So to start off, asking, what a platform is. Where did this kind of come from? And I kind of tried to choose those 2 images, semi on purpose, kind of looking first at the Ford River Rouge plant, kind of its hallmarks of the golden age of what some might call Fordism, which is kind of from that kind of, maybe you can think about that golden age from 1930s to maybe the 1970s. Especially kind of in North America, and perhaps, Don, you can probably reckon this from the UK and what was happening in Western Europe as well, where you had this massive automobile, heavy industry movement around the assembly line and the Model T and what that looked like, into a different type of corporation that we'll kind of better understand, hopefully today, these kind of platform giants, as you will. So a platform, at its kind of crux, at its most fundamental level, is a kind of a meeting place, right? A place where you can hold multiple interactions, multiple types of engagements, perhaps from a buyer and a seller, perhaps for someone to get onto the tube or the train, allowing for multiple types of exchanges and ways in which we can engage with multiple groups that perhaps wouldn't be able to without this type of platform. And for our purposes today, an online platform. So, moving from the Athabasca oil sands to what some commentators, give. We can be, critical and think about, what the use of these metaphors are. But some commentators have likened this to data being the new oil. And maybe that sounds familiar. They call it a raw material to be extracted by digital platforms like our metas or kind of Facebook, Instagram, if we're not quote unquote, paying for the service, we are then perhaps the product, or we are the, we're perhaps selling our own, or our data is perhaps being extracted and thus being used and generated to make a profit for these companies. That's kind of their underlying business model, is to facilitate these transactions between buyers and sellers, where in quote unquote data is the most valuable thing to be harnessed, to be quote unquote extracted, if to use those metaphors. So we moved from Athabasca to a new type of digital realm that these kind of companies up on the screen here, like the Googles, Facebooks, Ubers, Amazons, are kind of at the center of their business model, is this type of way in which we can generate profits by the use of people's data. And of course, we've already seen immediately perhaps red flags come about when we think about ethics and data and privacy, and a techlash as well, which I'll hopefully be talking about. How perhaps these unicorns have been grounded, or how their wings have perhaps been clipped by the need to regulate them, the need to better understand where our data is coming from, to ask critical questions as well about where our data and how our data gets used and where it comes from. This is what some authors and some scholars, like Nick Cernicek, a commentator here from TechCrunch, Tom Goodwin, he describes this notion of a new form, or at least a new variant of, maybe our mode of production, a new way of generating business, a new model of capitalism, perhaps, if you will, to use that a bit loosely. And he says this really, I think it's I think it captures it quite well. It's quite a punchy quote here. He says that Uber, the world's largest taxi company, owns no vehicles. Facebook, the world's most popular media owner, creates no content. Alibaba, the most valuable retailer, has no inventory. We can put Amazon in that same case, perhaps before. And Airbnb, the world's largest accommodation provider, owns no real estate. So we see perhaps that there's something going on, at least below the surface, under the hood, if you will. Something fundamentally is different about these types of companies, right? There's a difference between, the good old Ford Motor Company of the day and these new giants that have emerged onto the scene, right? We've got this imposition of, what we would call, from Nick Cernicek here, a lean platform, or what you would call like kind of an assetless approach to conducting business. So as you see from Tom Goodwin, right, you've got Airbnb, largest accommodation provider, owns no buildings. This is kind of exactly what Nick Cernicek is trying to tease out, and I've spent many hours with this book by my side, and trying to uncover, what's going on here and make sense of our ongoing predicament. And he says, quote, to maintain a virtually assetless approach and adopt a hyper outsourced model until that remains is the bare extracted minimum, right? Control over the platform enables a monopoly rent to be gained. And there might be a bit of labor jargon, but in essence, what I mean here is that there's something different, right? So we've got the Model T, Henry Ford, this type of standardization, simplification, kind of emblazoned upon the landscape, right? You can see, you go to kind of the American heartland today. A lot of my interest is in cities that are, kind of previously known as the Rust Belts. They were the manufacturing hubs, the lifeblood of the American economy. But now they've been, struggling through deindustrialization since, you can maybe, some commentators would maybe place a mark in the 1970s, maybe, 1980s. Some might have seen it a bit earlier, but from that kind of Taylorist, Fordist, emblazoned landscape, that Ford River Rouge that you saw earlier, Back in the day, and now as well, if GM, Toyota, Ford, if they want to increase their profits or to ramp up supply, they've got to build another one of those factories, right? They've got to stake out quite a bit of land to do that, to increase production. And you've seen them since forth, the 1980s, deindustrialization, outsourcing that to other places of the world that have unfortunately cheaper labor or poor working conditions. So you see that kind of move towards other places in the world. But in our platform day and age, if data is, quote unquote, on the headline, the new oil, Uber and Alphabet or Meta, if they want to increase their revenue or want to increase their capacity and reach more people, all they have to do really is to build a server just the size of maybe our shoebox at Green College, probably the size of my room, right? And people, you all know the shoebox and the split and what these look like. Can you imagine? Just the sheer transformation from an imposing factory like the River Rouge in Dearborn, Michigan, and contrast that to just opening it up another server in your closet, basically, right? There's a totally different dynamic that's going on in these corporations, and I want to, of course, always underscore this as being the platform economy, right? This kind of platform capitalism that Goodwin and Cernicek and others have kind of laid the foundations in us understanding. Another piece by a geographer, Mark Graham, at the other place, the Oxford Internet Institute, he writes that this is maybe what we can call platform urbanism. These platform companies, these Ubers, Alibabas, or Airbnb, they're Lyft, DoorDash, the list continues. They're not, some of them, say that we're just a tech company, right? If you take Uber, for example, Uber is has had lots of litigation around thinking about their drivers and saying, are they independent contractors? Are they employees, right? And that's been a really interesting mix-up around Prop 22 that happened in California, and just so many different ballot initiatives and thinking about these companies saying, nope, we're a lean platform, right? Just as Goodwin says, we don't own any accommodation if you're Airbnb, or if you're Uber, we don't own any taxis, we don't own any cars, physical infrastructures. We're just the app. We're just the platform. We're just providing the buyers and the sellers. We're, to take Uber for example, we're just the legit app on our phone, providing drive what they would. Oh, there we go. Sorry. They're just the drive. We're just connecting riders to and the drivers, right? But we're not going to get into the mix of becoming a taxi company, or the same thing with other companies like Airbnb, for example. We're just the exact same thing. We're not actually investing in our own physical resources here. We're providing a place for folks to stay, and folks who also want to provide an extra, maybe a way to generate money or another income. But Mark Graham's, you love to see this regulate, replicate, resist the conjunctional geographies of platform urbanism. And what he's saying here is that, although these companies like Uber, Google, Amazon, they appear to be, maybe operating both ethereally in the cloud, but they do at the same time shape what's happening on the ground, right? We've seen this with protests that are going on with Uber, drivers, wanting more equitable rights, whether that be employment, insurance, and the likes. And so, off the bat, we can see that these companies are perhaps operating at multiple scales, jurisdictions, and perhaps that's the way in which they're able to muddy the waters, and say, hey, when they do want to get regulated and folks want to take them to court, there's a famous case with Uber South Africa where drivers wanted to sue Uber and say, hey, we want employment rights. we want a minimum wage, we want, we want holiday pay, etc. And their case was actually successful in South Africa. But what so happened was that their contracts, however the app was, you read the, I accept, etc. Something in that waiver said that actually their contracts were being held in the Netherlands. So you have Uber drivers in South Africa thinking that they're accountable to the South African Uber company, their parent company over here, but actually to kind of exist at another scale, right? Their actual legitimate contract was with Uber in the Netherlands, and that's just been pervasive throughout. You've seen these companies try and operate at many different legal and social-spatial jurisdictions, and in the end, I believe the South African drivers, this is in a great book called The Gig Economy by Mark Graham and Jamie Woodcock, and they say that even though on the grounds in South Africa that they were actually, had a fair hearing, they weren't able to actually do anything because they had to go to the court in the Netherlands, and those drivers didn't have enough money or funds, and it might still be ongoing, but that's just an example of in ways in which these companies are able to embed themselves, right, in key sites, whilst also disembedding themselves into what Mark Graham says is to operate at these ephemeral digital dualisms, right? Concentrating power and reward whilst also retreating ephemerally to their either digital or national or transcontinental tentacles in which they reside in different types of places and shapes and forms. So if we were to really kind of ground ourselves, I really want to, hopefully for the last part of this talk, is to really ground ourselves in thinking about one company in particular and its spatial footprint, if you will. So come and journey with me to track Amazon's footprints as we look at HQ2 in the third part, last short and sweet part of our presentation today. So start off with a thought experiment. What comes to mind when you think of the company Amazon? Maybe there's a few things that might come to your mind. Here are a few that I've put on the screen. You might see and think about Prime delivery. You might see lots of folks, back in the day during COVID, get that KitchenAid, get on that bread, order those up, either work on that Amazon video, maybe you've got Alexas or Echoes, Rings, Kindles, and then further subsidiaries of kind of Bezos himself or Amazon adjacent, Whole Paycheck, Whole Foods, Prime Day, and all kind of that bottom middle is further on kind of tentacles of Amazon's perhaps distinct starting up, kind of working in the ways of our everyday lives, and how many of us would, kind of actually physically feel our lives perhaps be inconvenienced if these platforms weren't readily available, like Prime Delivery or just Amazon itself as an e-commerce platform. But hopefully today we'll see that Amazon does have a distinct geography. It does actively shape the urban space in which its corporation resides. So, humble beginnings. Amazon was founded in the garage of Bezos' rented home in Bellevue, Washington, just a few hours down south. His parents invested $250,000 in the startup, and on the 16th of July, 1995, Amazon opened as an online bookseller, selling the world's largest collection of books to anyone with access to what they called the World Wide Web, with the internet. But of course, Amazon now is much bigger than books. Amazon, if you ask yourself the geographical question, where is Amazon? It's fulfillment centers alone. So there's many, many tentacles to Amazon. We've got distribution, fulfillment. They're in logistics. They're in the cloud, AWS. That's kind of their geographical representation, just the fulfillment centers alone. And this is from CNBC. I took this I think this is data from 2022. So they've definitely expanded. But you can see a concentration along the northeastern seaboard. And then it gets a bit, sparse. You go down a bit south into Florida, Texas. Not too many in the heartland, although there's definitely been more since this image was taken, and then further up into California, Oregon, and then Washington State. Amazon's footprint, just fulfillment centers alone, this has definitely been, perhaps many of you might know, if you think back, if you came back home, maybe over the break, you might have seen lots of Amazon delivery, lots of fulfillment centers to get those packages to you swiftly. Some compare this to 3.2 million football fields. And yes, I tried to do the calculations, especially for our football lovers. That might be a bit more comparable to talking about this instead of half the size of Rhode Island. About 420,000 acres of land. But for the purposes and the rest of our talk today, I won't be talking about the fulfillment centers, but I really want to think about their headquarters. So I'm not really going to be talking about too much about that side of the kind of fulfillment logistics. I'm really interested in their headquarters, which is HQ1 in Seattle. Has anyone seen the spheres before or walked by? Okay, I've seen and I've heard this described in a class I was able to give a part of this lecture to earlier this term, and there was someone from Seattle, someone from South Lake Union, or in that area, and she described this as scary, intimidating, and quite imposing on the landscape. And this is what I'm really interested here today, is talking about Amazon's search for a second headquarters. So they've got HQ1 already here down the road in South Lake Union, the Spheres, as it's called. This is, I've got to always caveat, this is HQ. So this is, thinking about the execs. These are kind of the six-figure folks that represent Amazon. But if you're to think with me, right, if you're Amazon, where would you want to expand? Right, that geographic question. If you were to be Bezos for a day, I don't know if there'll be any takers, but if you were to be Bezos for a day, where would you want to expand? What specific features would you be interested in if you could tinker with that question? And this is where Amazon HQ2 comes into play. It was first thought about and released on the 7th of September 2017. It was projected to be a $5 billion project, bringing in 50,000 high-skilled workers whose average pay would be six figures, 150,000 US dollars. And so from the 7th of September onwards, Amazon's saying, hey, cities, anyone want to attract a unicorn, or anyone want to attract a company like us into into kind of be into the fold? And would you believe it? Would anyone want to guess how many cities wanted to sign up for this and kind of bring some proposals? Any ballpark guesses? How many cities try to sign up and say, hey, Amazon, we want you to come over? What that? Ooh, okay. A little bit lower, but you know what? Pretty much, and they were all concentrated in North America, which made it really interesting. So it was staying in North America. Merlin, did you have one? Five cities. Okay, so from in between, yeah, honestly, in between 5 and 1,000, we had 238 Amazon proposals. Vancouver put in a bid, Toronto put in a bid, and many others in the U.S. Put in a bid. The bids were incredibly unique. Some mayors and economic development councils just to say, hey, Bezos, we're here. Don't forget about us. We had an economic development firm in Tucson, in Arizona, the Sun Corridor. They sent 21-foot cacti, to Amazon in attempt to promote the city's bid. There was a place in Georgia, a city that wanted to annex like an incredible parcel of land and rename it Amazon City. I can't even make this up. Sly James, the mayor of Kansas City, Missouri, they purchased 1,000 products from Amazon from their own money, wrote 5-star reviews on each of them, and wanted to just tag and say, "Hey, Amazon, Bezos, don't forget about us. We want you." It gets even better. The Primonti brothers, chain sandwich shops based in Pittsburgh, offered free sandwiches to Amazon employees if they chose the city as their second headquarters, and the list goes on and on and on. But in the interest of time, sorry for rambling on. From 2017, we had the request for proposals. In January, later on, 238 proposals came in. In November, later that year, 2 cities were actually selected to be the headquarters. So basically, Amazon HQ 2 and 3 subsequently. But what happened was Amazon ended up canceling their New York proposed location after pushback from the community, and we'll kind of unpack a bit of that. So with the withdrawal of Amazon HQ 3, potentially in New York, phase 1 and 2 are currently underway in Virginia. I was just looking actually, you can search it up. Phase 1 is pretty much complete in National Landing, Virginia, and phase 2 is kind of, I think they put it on pause because of the supply chain issues and what's going on over there, but definitely shovels in, well underway. The next few slides are a bit of theory to ground this, but it's a bit heavy for 840. So basically, these sets of growth machines. This is Harvey Malach talking about cities wanting to, compete for competition. Right? These 238 cities were saying, "Hey, basically, Amazon, look at us. We want to, roll out the red carpet. We want to attract you, just like fly tape. We want you to be there, to be in our city." So this is Harvey Malach. He's a urban sociologist. Our kind of geographer, I gotta at least quote Harvey once to be a geographer, but he talks about this being the entrepreneurial city, cities being preoccupied with the exploitation of finding new ways to get growth, and this is one way in which they could do that is to attract a giant like Amazon, perhaps, to bring in those 50,000 workers and all that that will be in store. But once again, and coming to an end here, this kind of begs the question, right? Are cities just cogs in the machine? Are they just replaying the same script over and over again, the same amount of tax subsidies? In the case of, Virginia and New York, what did they have to do to be, selected out of these 238 cities? What makes New York different from Vancouver? And, National Landing, Virginia, different than Toronto? I think that's a fair question to ask. But we have to be critical, right? We have to think about these things not in isolation, but as part of a larger literature. Sorry, I feel like that you've got to put some magnifying glasses on that. But in essence, the first one is a race to the bottom, right? A race to the bottom in terms of who can give the most tax breaks, the most government subsidies, to be a friendly business climate. Second is civic boosterism, place-based marketing. We're the number one city, we're the most livable, etc. But also masking what that means, right? Livable for whom? For what? And third, this type of, I like this quote of like being scorched earth policies, which Kevin Cox, another geographer, talks about, this type of dull compulsion, the same script over and over again, more subsidies, pretty much rolling out the red carpet in the skeptical of Amazon HQ2. So when we ask why New York and Virginia, part of it is money. As these are the proposed areas, location. When I do this for a 100-level course and for the 300-level course, we'll do a little bit of brainstorm, mind map. But for the purposes of today, I'll just kind of give you a bit of the Cold Notes, Spark Notes version. Virginia would provide $573 million in tax breaks, $23 million straight up cash, as well as other incentives. In the case of Long Island City, New York, And there's a lot of pushback on this and subsequently why they withdrew. But they plan to give Amazon apparently at least $1.5 billion, billion with a B, cash grants totaling $320 million, etc. But we also see, more geographically, aside from the money, Long Island, in New York, kind of being at the center of financial power, right next to Wall Street, right next to universities and really quick transits to, if folks wanted from HQ1 from Seattle to go over to New York, there's plenty of airports and transportation. National Landing, Virginia. If New York was for financial hub and the seat of financial power, Virginia is not too far from the seat of political power and lobbying, and the importance of being close to DC, the importance of they quote the labor supply that's in both of these cities were exactly what Amazon was looking for. So in essence, that's a geographical question, right? We're asking, why is that there? How did that get there? Why should we care about that? Probing, thinking about these questions a bit more. So with National Landing in Virginia well underway, this is phase 2 of what they plan. To complement the Spheres in Seattle and South Lake Union, they have the Helix. Friends in England they commented this looks like an ice cream cone, or the swirly, so they should probably change to the swirls. But that's the at least the rendering of what they want phase 2 to look like. Phase 1 is kind of the buildings in the back, and they pretty much people have already that's well constructed, and that's kind of well established. But phase 2, the Helix, is on pause for now. So where does this? How can we kind of tie this in? Where does this leave us in terms of asking about our relationship to big tech and cities and the imprint? Going back to our activity, thinking about what a footprint means, right? Changing the landscape, actively, changing the neighborhood composition of what these places look like, what folks call home, long before Amazon even arrived on the scene, and much longer after Amazon arrives. So to begin, to wrap this up, we see that first, goodness me, this is much larger on my, but first, companies actively shape and become shaped by their environment. Second, corporations exist at multiple scales. This is kind of drawing back on Mark Graham's kind of notion of the global, the digital, the local. Data is the new oil, extracted like raw materials to generate a profit. So this is kind of Nick Cernicek, Tom Goodwin, these assetless lean platforms. Uber owning no vehicles, Airbnb owning no accommodations. And cities thus compete to attract these unicorns for investment and growth, as we've seen through Amazon HQ2. And that these giants have a distinct geography. They have a spatial footprint. They actively, as the first point says, they actively shape the urban condition, the fabric to which these communities are henceforth changed. This leads me to where we started as well with Amazon. Initially, Bezos was throwing up a few names up there. He initially also thought about naming the company Relentless.com. Take that as it will. If you even input Relentless.com in your phone, it will redirect still to Amazon. So give that a go in your free time. But maybe that's a bigger question about the relentless pursuit for that race to the bottom and to attract these unicorns and the price that might pay and the shadow that those footprints perhaps cast as well. But with that, thank you so much. Ooh, 10 minutes early. Okay, I was getting worried about there. But thanks so much for lending your ears, and I really appreciate that and the conversation that we'll have together. Thanks so much, everyone.